we come to this, as we're continuing through the first book of Samuel, we come to these, what I love, there's one of my favorite things in some of scriptures that you've got, it's almost like a lot of, you look at a lot of fantasy novels and you have intrigue and, like these interesting dynamics, deal with politics. And here you have some of this. You have this beautiful, they've been existing. They've been existing in this realm of judges. That's been their organizational structure, and I think that it worked well. I mean, you had the judges were they were led by, in a sense, elders of their community, kind of like the people who have lived and worked and joined alongside, and kind of have some from this wisdom in this group of people can now can help to judge, to settle disputes, almost like a parent, like a good father, right? Like a shepherd dealing with a flock. So there's almost as though it mirrored some of the relationship God was intending between us and him. What a kawiki-dink. And here we have the one who has lived in this role for so many years, Samuel. They're coming toward the end of his life. Now they're basically saying, now that you're almost dead, we'd let, and it doesn't seem like there's anyone else that we trust that's going to take up after you. Can we be like the others, our neighbors, the rest of the world, to have a different political structure to organize us and guide us? As though that they're seeing like there's some the natural progression is not looking obvious right now, and so there's a little bit of like, I don't trust that God's got us in hand. And so what do we tend to do? Well, look at the other people who maybe don't have it all together. And let's be like them. Those who don't follow the creator of the universe. Yes, they might have a better idea. Like that's going to be a good solution. And you see this tension, and we see it reveals some of this tension that we still experience to this day. This tension between, like, we want to be like the world. Well, look, they're doing that over there. That seems like people are kind of moving in that direction. Well, yeah, for a time. It's like look at a Christmas morning. We just experienced. Many of you probably, experienced a Christmas morning with maybe some young children, and they opened up all their presents, and they saw a new present. Da da da. Oh, right. Da da da. How often was it soon discarded and forgotten for something else? Attention spans are low. And they're not really realizing the full implications. What does it mean to have a king? And Samuel's very upfront. He's pretty honest. He's upfront, and it's like, yeah, but we must be like the other nations with the king to rule us and to lead us in warfare. Like that's good. We'll feel secure in that. And God, like a good parent, like he could have easily been like a hard line and like, no, refuse. But like sometimes a good parent to children, what are sometimes the best way a child can learn? All right, go ahead and try that idea. See how it works out. But then you're like, when it fails, I won't be here to say, I told you so. Come here, let me get you, and we'll hold you. And how can we help you get better? And that's what happens. So, and there's this tension. We have this tension in this world within ourselves. Sometimes we have this struggle, maybe even within the church, like, we sometimes feel like we're not with the memory of what we used to be or something like that. But it's like, and we have this temptation to, well, what if we just did this? What if we just did that? It was effective in this other community, in this other circumstances, this other. I'm not trying to be popular. And even Jesus says, like, it's when we become popular in the world, that's when I get worried. See, the thing is, we're called to be holy. God calls us to be holy. And what that means, as a very definition, is to be set apart. We're meant to not look like the world, to not act like the world. It means to be different from the world. So sometimes the temptations I have, we've got to use all the latest social media or the glitz and all these different techniques. Like, what if we just be faithful and consistent and to just some of the basic elements of what has sustained us for thousands of years? And trust that God does what he says that he does. Lo, I will be with you always till the end of the age. And to remember, he sustains us. He guides us. And who ultimately is the ruler of our lives? The world or our Heavenly Father? Is Christ king? Or do we relinquish that to some element in the world, to some earthly thing that does not last, that will not last? How many kings, how many governments have risen and fallen since this moment when they relinquish this kind of authority? How many times, and we can feel this tension even in this month. Like we could say, like, if we could put so much emphasis on earthly lawmakers, like to be able to push forth policies and things that reflect the divine law. It doesn't mean we don't stop trying to pursue that, but it's like, do we not trust, if we're taking care of first in ourselves in our lives to be like, God, you are ruler of my life. To be with my friends, people around me, my immediate circle. How do we encourage each other to remember that in our parish? And so on and so forth. And eventually it hits the world. We must start there. First and foremost. To seek to be holy, to be set apart, a saint, to live according to God's law. And as we continue to live that, it then affects culture, then affects society and the world. So as we come to this day, as we're reflecting on, when we have these tensions of who is the ruler of our life, who is king, and ultimately it gets to a question, do I trust God that he's got it in hand? Part of relinquishing that authority to him is that act of trust. That even sometimes I don't see the next step, I say, Lord, just help me ultimately to be faithful, and you will handle the success.